Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us here today for this WESIS webinar brought to us by our strategic partner, Salesforce. We're super excited to have this panel discussion today on Blaze Your Trail, Discover the Many Paths to a Career in Cybersecurity. My name is Lynn Dome, and I'm Women in Cybersecurity Executive Director. We often go by our acronym WESIS, W-I-C-Y-S. And it's We Sisters because that's exactly what we are. We are a cyber sisterhood. And we're a 501c3 member-based nonprofit. We have over 5,000 members, have representation in over 70 countries. We have 40 professional affiliates in Africa, Australia, Canada, France, India, Pakistan, the UK, and all throughout the United States, and 130 student chapters in Canada, India, Nigeria, Costa Rica, and all throughout the United States as well. And our mission is to recruit, retain, and advance women in cybersecurity. And we do so by creating opportunities and having many different initiatives. So we have a member portal, we have special interest groups, we have skill development training programs, webinars like the one you're on today, newsletters, job opportunities. We have a job board where all our strategic partners recruit from, including Salesforce. And all our members have access to upload their resumes and get recruited from that. We participate in leadership summits and in-person career fairs. We have a mentor-mentee program, veteran apprenticeship program, and so many more. So I'd encourage everyone who's joining us to check out our website, wesis.org, join the organization if that's of interest to you, subscribe to our newsletter to never miss a beat, and be a part of the community. Search us on LinkedIn and join the stories and the forces that our community shares collectively. So with that, I'm going to hand the mic on over to Lynn from Salesforce. She's going to introduce this incredible panel, and she's going to take the conversation from there.
Thank you so much, Lynn. We are honored to be a part of WESIS. It has brought so much to our organization, and we're just glad to be here as part of our Cybersecurity Awareness Month activities. We're here because this is a great time to pursue a career in cybersecurity, but not everybody knows how to make that leap. All sorts of companies, all sizes and industries are investing in security right now, so there are many open roles. It's just a question of knowing how to pursue those. And in addition, universities are continuing to deepen their offerings in this space, and there are many cybersecurity educational opportunities that not everybody knows about, so we want to share some of those today. At the same time, security teams like ours at Salesforce recognize that bringing diverse talent and backgrounds into our team really helps us drive excellence in our work. So on that note, I'm excited to be moderating this panel with three amazing women on the security team at Salesforce. So first, introductions. My name is Lynn Simons. I'm the Senior Director of Security Awareness and Engagement at Salesforce. I'm wearing a gray dress, and I use the pronouns she, her, and hers. I'm joining you from my home in Northern California, where it is finally raining. So just a little bit about myself. Back when I was in college and grad school, I was actually a law student. I think that if somebody had told me I would be ending up in the cybersecurity space, I would think they were absolutely crazy, and I would not have believed them. But careers are a journey, and on my journey, I became a marketer when I decided not to pursue a legal career anymore. And being in marketing in San Francisco, it was pretty hard to avoid tech. And I found myself more and more focusing on cloud and security, and ended up at Salesforce. At Salesforce, I came on as a marketer, and as luck would have it, I did an internal project for the security team at Salesforce and really just was captured by the team, the culture, the people, and I love cybersecurity. Maybe it had an appeal from my legal background, I'm not sure, but it's where I've ended up. I've been at Salesforce for 8 years, and it's been a wild ride and a wonderful ride. So I can't wait to share the other stories of the ladies on the call. So let's each introduce ourselves. And please tell us briefly about how you started out in the field of security. So starting with Nazira, my peer on the security team.
Thanks, Lynn. My name is Nazir Karlich. I'm joining from Boston, Massachusetts. So my career is somewhat traditional from an educational background. I went to school for computer science for my undergrad and grad school, but I didn't know anything about security. So my first security job out of school was internship with World Bank. So that's how I ended up in the US. I'm originally from Central Asia, and I went to school for grad school to India. And my first job out of school was internship with World Bank. So I flew to Washington, D.C. I didn't know anybody. It's a brand new country. And my first job was in the enterprise security team. So as an intern, my job was to manage the APK system, issue a lot of smart cards for people to log in. So yeah, that's how it started for me. It was very accidental internship, and that's how I started. And then from there, I moved to Boston to work for EMC Corporation, one of the largest tech companies. And so when I did that switch, actually, I can talk about it later, but it was a big jump because I was going from one field of security to completely different field of security. So I made that big jump and moved to Boston many years ago. And I worked at EMC. Then it was acquired by Dell for a total of 10 years. And then I made a switch to Salesforce about 3 years ago. And I can also talk about that, making that kind of a big jump after working for a big company for many years as well. But yeah, and today I'm a senior director in security assurance group. So I run security assurance teams for a couple business units at Salesforce.
Nazir, I remember interviewing you when you came on Salesforce. And actually, one of the things that really captured my attention was your involvement in women's organizations. You really pushed me as an interviewer to demonstrate that we were committed to women in the field of security.
Yes, you were in my interview panel, yes.
Yeah, and that really stood out when you interviewed. I think, just showing your interest in making the field itself better was really impactful. Something to think about.
Thank you.
So thanks. Elena, did you want to share, introduce yourself and share a little bit about how you ended up in the field?
Yes, absolutely. Hi, everyone. My name is Elena Sidikala. I'm currently working as a product security engineer at Salesforce, and my path to cybersecurity is quite non-traditional. I was born and raised in Russia, and I studied finance until my junior year. And then 5 years ago, I decided to take a trip to America, and that trip changed my whole life. Long story short, I ended up quitting my school and ended up moving to the United States when I had a backpack and $350 cash. I didn't know anybody, I didn't know what I'm gonna do, and I just wanted to figure it out while I was in America. So several years later, after trying different nonprofit organizations, after taking these classes at library, like taking Udemy classes, and just finding online resources, I found a nonprofit organization called Year Up. It's a nonprofit across the United States, and they have several different tracks. And one of the tracks was cybersecurity. So I enrolled in that cybersecurity track, and it was quite a journey that completely changed my life. And after 6 months of rigorous training, learning all about cybersecurity, I got an internship with NCC Group, which is a cybersecurity consulting company. And that was a super technical role where I had to learn just so much hands-on. And I had amazing colleagues who shared their knowledge with me and taught me a lot. I worked with so many different clients, which are like Fortune 500 companies. And that just gave me exposure and networking to networking, making these connections with other security engineers and learning so much from them. And then last summer, I decided that I want to transition into more like security in-house position, application security engineer. So I started interviewing with other companies. And last year, November, I started working with Salesforce. So it's almost been a year so far, and I really like it. This is exactly what I was looking for as my next challenge and my next step in the career. And I really enjoy it so far.
That's amazing. Year Up is such a great organization. Can you share a little bit about, what kind of people and opportunities that there are through Year Up? I'm not sure everyone is familiar with the organization.
Yes, absolutely. So Year Up is a nonprofit organization, and it's a national nonprofit, which is it has locations across the United States. The one that I went to was in San Francisco, And San Francisco tend to be a little bit more technical. So San Francisco location offers cybersecurity, QA, IT, and project management tracks. It's a 1 year long commitment. And a good thing about it is it's totally free. And if you get accepted, you'll also get an internship, which sounds like a dream. And a lot of the times, like, when you go for a traditional path, you go to school, you have to pay tuition, or even if you go to a traditional boot camp, you still have to pay like $18,000 or something like that. And so this was a really, really good opportunity. And to qualify for that, you have to be somewhere between 18 up to 25, 6 years old. And also there's application that you have to go through. There's like an interview. And then if you get selected, basically you're getting enrolled in that program. And there are also such requirements like all you have to do is just high school diploma. You don't need to have a higher education. So that was like one of the requirements. Also, they look for like low income like families, and that was like one of the requirements. And they tried really to bring opportunities to different people and like close this gap between. There are like lots of amazing young adults out there who just don't have these opportunities. Like they are smart, they are passionate, but they just don't have maybe money, or they don't have someone who went through this path already. Like maybe they are the first ones who went to college, so they don't know even who they can reach out to. And programs like Year Up, they provide mentorship, they provide path to starting career. And a lot of the students who went through Year Up, they started making 60,000 plus like a year, depending on the track. So that's a pretty good after just 1 year program. And yeah, it's a great opportunity, and I recommend everyone to look into it.
It's great because it challenges the assumption that security education is expensive, that you need to maybe be a certain age or have a certain education level. It really just challenges all of those assumptions. And I think you're living proof that it can take you where you want to go. So thanks. Sarah?
Hi, my name is Sarah. I'm right now a junior at Northeastern University, and I'm studying cybersecurity. So I'm a bit more of a traditional track. I was the past summer intern for the product security team under Nazir, and I had such a great time that I'm coming back again next year for the summer. And right now, I'm currently the cybersecurity consultant intern at BCG Platinian, and I'm actually in the Atlanta office, which is great views, really cool. So let's see. Is there anything else I needed to answer? I'm so sorry.
Just a little bit more about your educational path and your interests maybe growing up, and how did you end up in this kind of program?
Sure, yeah. So I was actually not really on the CS or cybersecurity track until maybe senior year of my high school. I was originally going to go in for science, so I was thinking more biology. And then suddenly somebody started talking to me about a CTF competition that they were doing. CTF stands for Capture the Flag, and it's this online competition where you utilize different vulnerabilities or you utilize different strategies to find vulnerabilities in an online web sort of application, and you earn points if you are able to expose that vulnerability. So that sounded super cool to me, and I tried it during class one day in my senior year, and I started playing it throughout all the rest of my classes that day, which wasn't the best thing to do, but I still did it, and it was overall a great thing because it made me realize that science wasn't for me. It was cybersecurity. And I just so happened to have gotten into Northeastern at that point. And looking around their programs, I was like thinking, I want to go into CS. I want to do cybersecurity. Let's see what they have. And they're one of the very, very few programs in the United States that has cybersecurity as a major. So on a whim, before I even showed up, I was like, I'm going to switch to a cybersecurity major. I'll try it out for a semester or two. And if I don't like it, then I'll keep figuring it out because I'm only a freshman at that point. And I took my first class. It was Foundations of Cybersecurity, and it was one of the best classes I've ever taken. The content was just so different than anything I've ever seen before, and I was so engaged with the projects that they had us do. We had to make a password just create passwords and like try to hack stuff. It was just ridiculously cool to me. And that's when I knew that I wanted to stay with it. And that's really just how I got into cybersecurity. You know, very, very straightforward. I knew very early on, which was very lucky of me. So.
And it'll be interesting to see where you go from there. I don't know a ton about college programs in cybersecurity. What typically happens after people graduate? Do they continue on with more education? Do they tend to go straight into the field? How does that all work?
Right. So in cybersecurity, mostly because there's a cybersecurity major as an undergrad, I don't necessarily need to get a master's in cybersecurity, but they do offer masters in cybersecurity at Northeastern and other universities around the US. So a few of my friends are actually doing that. That's like a 4 years of undergrad plus 1 in masters. So that's one way you can go into it. A bunch of other of my friends are going straight into the industry after university because you typically get a very good cybersecurity education in your undergrad. So you don't necessarily have to get that secondary degree. So people go into all different sorts of places afterwards because, you know, there's so many fields within cybersecurity. They can go into government work, they can go into consulting work, they go into application work, like with Salesforce, for example. It's just such a wide variety after you get your cybersecurity degree, which a lot of people don't realize because cybersecurity sounds so specific, but really it just opens up more doors.
Yeah. I think a lot of people think about application security when they think about security. It's sort of when they look at what's out there, it's sort of like, how can I, look at code and make sure that, products are airtight and so on. Nazira, maybe you want to talk a little bit about the various types of opportunities in security organizations, and then on the technical path, and then I'll share a little bit about some non-technical opportunities in security teams.
Yeah. So it's like all you mentioned, cybersecurity is such a big area, right? There are a lot of roles. From the technical perspective, we have security engineers, and security engineering could be in multiple areas as well, right? So I think all three of us come from what we call security assurance. That's where we deal with the product security, application security, infrastructure security. And then there are other security engineering areas like network security, security response, detection and monitoring. I mean, there are a lot of engineering tracks within security that people can pursue and use their maybe previous background. So, for example, if they have a strong network engineering background, then network security could be an entry point for them because they bring that knowledge. If somebody's a developer, software developer, then being in application or product security is a good entry point to cybersecurity. So I think the good thing about all these technical areas, there are other technical path you can bring in, or you can start it brand new, just like Alia did, right? You don't have to have any background and start the career. I think it's important just to identify what your passions are, what do you like doing, what excites you, what makes you happy, and then go from there.
Yeah, at a large company, even at Dell and now at Salesforce, do you see that there are opportunities for engineers to try out another area? So let's say they take a job in application security or in enterprise security. Do they have the opportunity to check out incident response or other parts of a security team?
Yeah, absolutely. So for example, when we hire in security assurance, sometimes it's easier somebody to teach security, right? So we look a lot. We look people with a development background because they know how coding works. What are the coding best practices, and sometimes it's easier to teach them security because they know the other the coding part already or software development life cycle. So in my career, I've hired a lot of people who don't come with security background, but they come from the software development background. And I've hired people come from as a business analyst or as a program managers in completely different field, but they bring the skills that that are easily transferable to security field. Yes, there will be some areas they need to, learn new things, but there are a lot of skills they can definitely bring with them from their previous experience.
Mm-hmm. That's great. I have a question from the audience, but first I just want to talk about a couple of different opportunities there are in security teams for people with non-technical backgrounds. So me, for example, I do not have an ounce of security background or technical background, but I did have security background. But there are a multitude of opportunities, especially at larger companies, I think, where there's more investment and have more operational needs. At Salesforce, we have a security operations team that manages our finances, manages some of our planning and operations, some of our training, and supports our Chief Information Security Officer. We also have a communications team that communicates both internally and externally. Some people end up in a field where they're doing what we call reactive communication. So that's more on the incident side of the house. That can be a 24/7 kind of job. But I think some people enter the field with not a lot of background, sometimes with a little bit of exposure to technical topics, so that it's easier for them to write. But instant response is one. And then on the proactive communication side, which is a little more where my role sits, we communicate about security or security training opportunities or around best practices to internal and external audiences. There are also many who enter the security awareness field who don't have technical backgrounds. And then we have a very large there's a very large need for program management and product management and security. We have security product offerings at our company. So that's sort of like a part of the security field that isn't maybe part of a traditional security team, but security features are built in products. So sometimes people take that route, which is non-traditional. It is still technical, but there are people who in product management and on product marketing who don't necessarily have a technical background. So there is movement from other fields into the security field, and I think there's a really big need for that. So let's take that question from the audience, and I think it ties in a little bit to what Nazir was just talking about. What advice does the panel have for people who have had another career, not in security, but are interested in security? What is a good place to get started to learn fundamentals?
Yeah, I can start, and I'm sure Elia and Sarah can add as well. Go find your security team, right? Go, talk to them. I mean, if you're not in the office, find them on your work chart, set up a 15 minutes a conversation. That's how, I get a lot of things, like somebody from customer support or other engineering teams. So yeah, find out where your security teams and have a conversation and talk to them. What do they do? What skills do they require right now, or maybe the openings they might have. And I think that the security team in your organization will be the best resource as a starting resource. Oh yeah, do you want to add anything from your training? What are the websites or any other resources you used when you were in Europe?
Yes, absolutely. I think it really depends on what you're interested in. And I think, first of all, it's important to understand what cybersecurity offers in terms of what are different paths in cybersecurity. So if I was in that position, so I probably would go on like YouTube or just anywhere like on Google and search for cybersecurity track, cybersecurity jobs, and what kind of jobs are out there. And then read about like what incident response is, like what is GRC, what is like legal side of cybersecurity, what is like offensive security, and just look into, and also maybe check out job descriptions, like go on LinkedIn and find these companies that I'd like to work for in the future and look what they're looking for, what kind of skills, and then also look up what it is, what are they looking for, and try to imagine yourself working in those positions, and just imagine yourself and think, would you enjoy doing it? And if the answer is yes, then find people, again, like on LinkedIn maybe, and who already work on those positions, reach out to them and just be open and share your experience and tell them, hey, like I don't have experience right now, but I'm really interested in learning more about this job, about this role. Could you share your experience? Could we have like maybe a 15 or 30-minute call, or just even just exchange text messages or direct messages on LinkedIn. So that's something I used to do. Like when I was in Europe, I would reach out to people. Also, there are these good organizations like Women in Cybersecurity, like Women in Cyberjutsu, Women in Security and Privacy. There are also a lot of Twitter accounts that really helps to follow, because those accounts share a lot of information, share a lot of different, again, opportunities in terms of scholarships for people who may be coming from different backgrounds. A lot of people transition from military to cybersecurity, and there are different nonprofit organizations who support that and help to get that, to make that transition happen. And what else? So there are like lots of resources, and honestly, I've seen so many people help other people and just share information, sharing the knowledge, which is really awesome about the cybersecurity community. And lots of people use Twitter in cybersecurity. So that's a great resource just to start and start following people, see what's going on. Yes, and then when you figure out what you're interested in, just start reaching out to people and be open, and just keep learning.
Yeah, absolutely. Like all of the above, everything that was just said, it's such good advice. And I'm not quite in that position where I had a previous career, but I did like even just last year and then the previous year before, when I was learning more about cybersecurity, I feel like I was in your position where I didn't know much about it, but I knew I wanted to get in. So definitely you're in the right place by looking into the WESIS resources. You know, webinars like this is great for asking those types of questions and for learning more about about different careers that we offer in security. And I know WESIS offers a whole bunch of other types of webinars, and they have great connections to companies. So I would definitely poke around WESIS website, look around there. I would say that if you're into application security, even if you're interested and you want to learn more about it, CTFs are like the fastest way to figure out what application security is and if you would like it or not. Like you can tell in probably a day if you would be interested in it. And some popular ones are Pico CTF. That one's probably the best beginner one to start out with. And again, as I said before, you'll learn a lot about learning about vulnerabilities in web applications and different types of applications. You'll learn all about like using the shell, because that's a huge part of it. So I highly recommend those. I think they're super fun, and I think they're a great start into application security.
Yeah, another thing I do is I subscribe to some industry newsletters like Dark Reading and others, and CISO Magazine, just to see what's going on in the industry, where the trends are, to see what people are focusing on. I think right now with what's happening with ransomware, there's a lot out there that can kind of help you understand kind of the bigger landscape that people are caring about right now. And if you're interested about cloud security, there are lots of resources out there to just sort of start to understand what the bigger issues are and see what kind of sparks your interest. So let's shift gears a little bit into the interview process and what that's all about. So Nazira, I think it would be great for you to just start with what skills that you are looking for when, as a hiring manager, you're looking for people.
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, as a hiring manager, you know, I think in security, I think I always ask questions about, you know, the interest, right? What excites people, right? Because security is such a, you know, fast-paced environment, right? You really need to be excited about things happening really, really fast, right? So if you're somebody who likes predictable, you know, pace, or you know what you're going to do day in and out, then probably security is not the right area, right? Because the security is everything is changing so much. And especially if you're in that role where, you know, for example, if you're working in a security response or security operations, those are the roles, you know, it's never boring and always changing, you know, so you have to like multitask, you have to do, you know, just be that, you know, person that will get excited about those things, right? So when I'm interviewing as a hiring manager, because I mean we do have an interview panel, and some other members in the panel will be focused on, you know, technical skills and technical interviews. And my role as a hiring manager is typically just to gauge like where they, you know, is it that, you know, what excites them? What do they want to do? Like, what are the aspects of, things they liked reading in job description, like Alia said, right? What are the things that attracted them in the job description? Um, you know, and I asked them, like, what do you expect from this role? Like, how do you expect you to be challenged? So it's just about finding that, the fit from their interest perspective and from their what we call strength, right? You might have a lot of skills, but if you don't enjoy using them, it's not your strength, right? So as a hiring manager, for me, it's really critical to find the strength that the candidate might have and that they will bring to the job.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a trend in interviewing. I can say definitely true at Salesforce that the technical portion of the interview tends to be in the beginning where people are getting screened, and then they're screened for their technical experience. But then really there's a lot of focus on skills like partnership and collaboration, stakeholder management, teamwork, and things like that. So we'll bring in a multidisciplinary panel, sometimes with non-technical people like myself, so that we can make assessments of the employee in ways other than just their technical experience. And I think that's really important to think about if you're somebody who's changing careers or coming from a different technology area, that, there's more to it than just doing the security work. And companies are starting to care more about the whole person. So,
yeah.
So I think Aaliyah and Sarah have interviewed more recently than Nazira and I. It'd be great to hear some tips from you about kind of how do you prepare for an interview? What have you found it works for you as you are walking into an interview with a company that you've never spoken to before? Either of you can start.
I'll go first. So I guess I'll speak specifically to my interview process with Salesforce because I feel like that's the most relevant. So probably the first thing, even before the interview process, I actually got a LinkedIn message to apply an interview for the position. And when I got it, I really thought that I had zero of the qualifications. Like I thought I was so underqualified. I was like, this is just going to be fun little practice for me as I continue on my journey of trying to find an internship. And showing up, I went through the first technical process, of course, and then I brought my technical process and we talked about it in a later interview. And during the interview, I was thrown questions that I had no idea what they were talking about. Like, I'll be honest, I had no clue what some of the things they were talking about were. And just as I'm being honest here, I was honest with my interviewer. I was like, I'm sorry, I don't understand. I don't really know what that is, but could you tell me? Could you teach me what that is so that I know for the future? And I think that is that's really important into the interview process is not only if you don't know what you're talking about or you don't understand what the interviewer is talking about, don't just pretend that you know everything because it will be obvious, especially if it's something very clear and that you just don't know it. It's so much better just to be honest with them, say, I don't understand, but I'd really, really like to know. And that also plays off of Nazira's willingness to learn. Another thing that was noted was that it was like I really showed enthusiasm for the role. I was really excited about security, even talking about my previous experiences within security throughout my classes and my projects. It was obvious that I love security and that it was something that I really wanted to learn more about. And I think my interviewers were really excited to see that because it's way easier to teach somebody who's really excited about it than to have someone who knows those skills but doesn't really want to use them as much. So I would say those are some really important things that happened during my interview process.
Sophia, anything you want to add?
Yeah, that's some really great points there, Sarah. Honesty, I think that's very important during interview process. Being honest if you don't know something, and definitely, especially in technical interviews, you will find yourself not knowing something because we're all humans. We can't know everything, and technical interviews can be tough. It literally can go from threat modeling, code review, live pen testing for application security type of roles, and it's a lot of information to cover. And there was a situation when I didn't know, and I would do the same thing. I would just, as Sarah said, I would say, I don't know, but if I had like Google, I would figure this out. This will be my approach. But right now, I don't have this information. Could you walk me through, like maybe this code, for example, or could you share a little bit more information? And that will kind of walk you through the way I think about it right now with the current information as I have right now. So that was my approach to those type of questions. And basically, you're just showing your kind of critical thinking skills. That's another way to approach that question. And then showing enthusiasm, that's also what Sarah mentioned, just showing that you're really passionate, showing that you're not only like doing cybersecurity in your working hours, but you're also maybe you're volunteering outside of like your work. Maybe you're like writing blog posts. Maybe you're doing some type of like bug bounty, like hunting, which is where you go like register maybe HackerOne or Bugcrowd, and then you look for bugs and then you submit those on those platforms. Just literally anything, like just your willingness to learn and try to get better and keep up with the industry. I think that's what really matters. But also, I think interview has a mix of behavioral questions. So you really need to be a good communicator. You need to show that you can work in a team, that you have like conflict resolution skills. I think that's also important. And also technical skills. I think it definitely helps to prepare for those technical questions and maybe have someone who can practice with you, like ask those questions. Some of the common questions you can just find, again, type in Google search, maybe like 50 common questions asked in the interview, and practice those questions with someone close with you, or like someone in the industry who already knows the answers to these questions, so you can nail those common questions. Yeah, so that'll be my recommendation.
Yeah, I mean, I will say that I've even like given myself a pep talk. One of the things you said earlier was about, you need to be confident about what you know and be honest about what you don't know. I think that it took me a while in my career to realize that my worth was my experience, and that it's okay that I don't know everything, and feeling confident in what I do know was really a turning point in my ability to kind of present myself in an interview. So there's some great questions coming in. So I want to pepper those in. We have a couple of things we're going to cover later that we had planned for, but these are excellent questions. And this is kind of my favorite that's up there right now. So how do you even get that initial interview if you don't have a cybersecurity background, but you do have the transferable skills? Any suggestions?
Oh, I have a good one. It is go to conferences. I went to the Women in Cybersecurity conference. I'm plugging them so much, but it's because the conference is actually so useful. I went to the one in Colorado actually, in September, early September, and they had an entire career fair, and all you had to do was just like submit your resume through a link or hand it to a person. There were so many people there just wanting to talk to all the new cybersecurity women, and they are so nice, and they're so willing to help you out, and they love talking to you, asking your answering your questions. And I got a bunch of people, coming to me, talking to me, and then eventually reaching out to me for an initial interview. It's a great place to go, especially cybersecurity. If you wanted to go into cybersecurity, I would recommend the cybersecurity conferences, just because a lot of the normal CS ones, like Grace Hopper, they'll have way more CS ones and maybe a few cybersecurity. So if you want a cybersecurity initial interview, go to those conferences. That's like one of the biggest things that you can do.
Yeah, that's a great point. And Salesforce actually attends many of those conferences, and they will be hiring managers and other engineers just like myself and Aliyah sitting in the booth, and we'll be happy to talk to you. So, find local chapter, local conferences. I know it's right now, the COVID, it's a little tricky, but we've done coupled, and we've done a virtual career booths as well. So we've done with AWF, some other few organizations. So you can do it online, and so there will be an area for you to come and meet people from those companies and have a conversation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So Nazir, this is another audience question. Are you looking for certifications during the resume screening process? Do you have recommendations on certain certifications to prioritize if you're going into the field that are either
that's a great question,
or might set people apart right now, like where there's like a lot of need or whatever?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, personally, as a hiring manager, I don't look at the, having or not having certain certification as a qualifying factor. I think as a full personal, learning experience, I think there are some really good training, programs that comes with a certification. So I recommend doing this just for learning experience, right? I think SANS is one of my favorite one. I think Alia is taking one right now as we speak. I took myself when I was an IC, individual contributor role, multiple of them, but it was for me to learn. It wasn't for me to put in my resume and to be more noticeable. But I think, I'm not denying that it doesn't help. I think it helps probably. There are some recruiters who do screening on, certain keywords and certifications. So I don't think it's going to hurt you. But as personally as a hiring manager, when I'm looking at the resume, I don't consider certification as a gating factor. But there are a lot of certification and training programs just, from the learning opportunity, I think will give you a lot of a leg up.
Nazira, so
Yes.
if the person didn't have any experience, like any actual practical experience working in a company in the cybersecurity role, but they had certifications that they maybe earned in the past year, would you count that as an experience? And so you would see that resume and they have like maybe not related cybersecurity experience, but they have the certifications and they spend time learning themselves. So would that count as an experience?
It's a good question. I think that those gonna really show during the interview process, during the technical screening, right? So if you're doing, even if the role requires certain level of technical expertise, and we are screening against those expertise, and if they are able to answer, then yes, right? It doesn't matter it's on the job experience or something you learned recently, as long as you are able to. Unless it's a entry level position that you don't require any experience. But if when we usually hiring for a senior role, we usually require 2 or 3 years experience or more. And I think if you can demonstrate that, yeah, you can solve those technical challenges and you have a technical experience from learning from the certification, then absolutely we will consider those.
So another audience member is asking a great question. Are there any skills that you wish incoming employees had stronger backgrounds in? And the example they give is in the field of biology, most new grads are weak in statistics. So an applicant that has statistics experience to kind of enhance their biology experience would be attractive. Are there any specific skills you're looking for as a hiring manager?
Yeah, I mean, I think Lena, you would agree. I think communication part is the big one, right? As a security professionals, our job is to communicate this risk information, technical information to, because as a security professional, sometimes we're not the ones who are fixing the problem, right? It's somebody in the either engineering organization or product organization or in IT. So it's our job is to describe the risk in the language that they can understand, right? So I think definitely, communications, ability to translate technical information to non-technical audience, I think will be, one of the skills. What else? Fast-paced environment, I talked about already, right? So you have to be somebody who's, who's comfortable with that kind of environment, right? So if if somebody is not comfortable, it's gonna be hard. They're gonna get burned out pretty quickly, or they're just not gonna be, they're not gonna be enjoying what they do. Conflict resolution is always, again, when you're working with other stakeholders, they have other things they have to do. There are competing priorities, right? So sometimes they're not going to listen to you, or there might be a conflict situation that you have to resolve. So I think those, non-technical skills are very critical as well to be successful in this path.
And a little tip I have would be that because those are the kind of things that we know that employers are looking at, it's really good to come armed with some examples when you come to your interview. So I think it's, a pretty high probability of being asked a question about collaboration or teamwork or conflict resolution, it's really good to think in advance about projects that you've worked on where you can provide an example, where you're not providing any proprietary information, of course. And you'll feel more confident if you know that you have a couple in your back pocket, or just even a project that you found challenging that you want to share, because a lot of interviewers will ask, what was the most challenging project that you've worked on? And what skills did you use?
Yeah, definitely. And I think one other things I think I want to add is also just having this growth mindset, right? Willingness to learn new things, willingness to consider new perspective is a key. I mean, it's one of our core values as a Salesforce, as a company, having a growth mindset. But yeah, like we mentioned, come with examples, because somebody will gonna ask you like, what describe me a situation where it didn't go your way. What did you do, right? Or is there something that you've learned? How would you do differently next time? So definitely having a growth mindset is a very key as well.
Sarah,
I'm sorry. I'm just gonna.
Oh, good. I wanted you to share a little from your perspective, having more recently interviewed in the field.
Yeah. I mean, what we were mentioning about having some examples in your back pocket ready, I literally had a Google Doc with questions and then my answer to it. And before any interview for like 10 minutes, I'd read it over. I'd be like, okay, if they ask me about conflict resolution, I have this example. If they ask me about a time when I worked in a group and, things didn't go my way, I will use the same example. It's just like I had an entire list of it, and it just, maybe I didn't memorize things word for word because that doesn't seem very natural, but just knowing that I knew and that I had that doc ready and that I was prepared, the existence of it just really relaxed me, and it let me go as if this was more of a conversation rather than an interview.
That's a great
Same thing
tip.
as Sarah mentioned. I did the same thing. I didn't write down the answers, but right before the interview was about to start, I will just open up my doc and we'll go question by question and say it out loud, just like to kind of practice, because the interviews, like, they go maybe 45 minutes, and that's all the time you have, which is usually 30 minutes for actual conversation and 15 minutes for like Q&A or like any other questions. And that's the time that you have to make the impression. And if you don't know the answer, if you don't know this case scenario, when you maybe had this conflict and how you resolved it, and if you don't have a quick example just to share it, you would just spend those 30 minutes like, oh, I don't remember, let me think. And it's just like the time like goes. I think it's really helps to have those examples like handy.
Yeah. So here we have some great questions coming in. I'm excited to see the engagement. So do you have recommendations to highlight my non-tech skills and non-traditional background as a positive thing? For example, service industry jobs and teaching, which don't have an obvious connection to tech.
I actually have experience in both service industry and teaching because I was a cashier for like a store in my local town, and I was a teaching assistant for one of my classes at school. So I feel like this question is like perfect for me because I put both of those on my resume and I was asked about both of those. And I would say to both, the service industry, that absolutely highlights your soft skills. You're able to talk to somebody in a professional manner, even if they might agitate you, because that happens in the service industry. But you're able to talk to people and you're comfortable with talking to people, even in weird conflicts. And teaching, that's exactly what we need in terms of you're able to learn and digest something that might not be necessarily super easy to understand, and you can teach that to people who need to understand it. So when I had my teaching assistant job, I would learn about my math class, or I'd learn about security. I would know the topics well, and then I have to teach it to the students who need help. So those non-tech skills and non-traditional backgrounds, I would say it's already a positive thing if you have them. There's nothing you really need to do in order to spin them to be more technical, because soft skills are just as important as like hard skills in like security jobs like this.
Mm-hmm.
That's a totally great point, and I agree with everything what Sarah said. Teaching and also customer service, and I think it's during interviews it's also important. Basically, maybe this will sound bad, but you're literally selling yourself. So, and I think if you can tailor this experience as like teacher or customer service and tailor it to the role that you applied for, let's say, for example, you were going to be a security engineer and you're applying this, your previous experience as a customer service, and you bring up, oh, I have this experience in customer service, and this will help me in building this relationship with different customers internally at the company, with like different maybe management, with executives, with developers, and that will be really handy with teaching. If you're applying maybe for CPM role, for example, that's again super handy. That's when you can bring this experience and you can share your knowledge. You know how to structure the content. You know how to make it very understandable by everyone and break it down. So I think if you tailor it to the role, that's when you can really bring it up and just highlight your experience.
So let's answer one more question from the audience, and then we'll shift gears over into equality, which is a great topic for the security field that we're all thinking about. So just a quick one. Does Salesforce offer any internship opportunities for doctoral or grad students? I think, Nazir, you could probably take
Yes,
that.
we do. So our internship program called Future Force, that's the one that Sarah came through. And we do, we have undergrad and grad students. I think grad student includes as well doctoral. I don't think we differentiate what level, but yes, we do internship for both undergrad and grad students. So check it out. Sarah, what is it? futureforce.salesforce.com.
Most likely you could, if you just Google Future Force Salesforce, you'll probably find way more information than you'll be able to digest. But I can confirm I met undergrad, grad, and postdocs while I was in the Future Force program.
We've had them on our team as well. And so if you are interested in Future Force, start looking at our website in around August, and you'll start seeing what the process looks like, because it gets really, that's when the process starts to intensify in terms of applying for the following summer.
Yeah.
And it's really early.
Yeah.
So, and I know a lot of companies are doing it at the same time.
Yes. I somehow got mine in like January, February. I do not recommend waiting that long. Definitely start looking now.
Yeah. Okay, so let's change gears a little bit. There's something that's been on our mind a lot. I think everyone's, with all of the news around race and around women's issues in the last, year to 18 months. So let's talk. There was a question that we said we would answer in the abstract for this session, which is around what Salesforce is doing to close the equality gap in the security industry. It's something that it's not just a Salesforce thing, but a lot of companies out there are really concerned about this. And different companies are taking different approaches to that. So Nazira, did you want to talk a little bit about some of our initiatives in the equality space?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, we have a lot of things going on. We just covered the Future Force, right? That's where we're trying to bring the talent from, universities. We have a lot of equality groups within Salesforce. To give you an example, we have Women in Tech, we have Latino Force, we have Bold Force. So it's a different support groups within our organization to help each other. And so we have allies in those groups helping and advocating for all the members. We also, as a company, we participate in World Economic Forum Cybersecurity Learning Hub. I think, Lynn, probably you know more about that than I do. So we provide a lot of training material through their Cybersecurity Learning Hub. So if you can Google it. I think we have a link from the announcement part here as well. So go to that link. So we provide a lot of free training through our Trailhead as well. And we've contributed a lot to that World Economic Forum Cybersecurity Learning Hub as well. We participate in different industry organizations, just WISES. We are part of EWF, Women's Society of Cyber Jiu-Jitsu. We are a member of ICMCP. So yeah, we try to not only do things internally, but also participate externally, that we are helping our community in general to build and bring talent and help community to gain new skills and opportunities for networking as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, back to the Learning Hub a little bit. One of the things we started talking about in the beginning was this perception that it's expensive to be educated in the cybersecurity field, and it's really important to understand that there are free resources out there. The Learning Hub is one of them, and what's cool about it is that it actually has a section where you can look at different cybersecurity roles and learn about them and see if those resonate with you. So we have profiles of what an incident response manager would do, what a network security engineer would do, a security awareness professional. So you can read those and really dig into, is this of interest to me? And find other resources to help you for free, figure out if security is interesting to you. And I think the other thing that's really important is to get out there in the community. I think Sarah was talking about that earlier. That's really where it's happening in terms of meetups and conferences, which I hope are starting to get more active again this year, where there are opportunities to do things like sponsor women's events where there are capture the flag games that women are encouraged to participate in. We have been really active at NullCon in India, trying to provide opportunities for women by offering a capture the flag game there, and also just creating forums where people can talk about the more difficult issues facing the security industry. Maybe Aaliyah and Sarah, have you attended any events that have been of interest in that kind of are looking at equality in the security field? It's hard because there haven't been a lot of events for the last year.
That's a great question. I mean, women in security equality is well covered by women in cybersecurity. It's a very big topic, and I think that's what I went to a few I get talks during the conference. But that's a great question. And honestly, a really good resource for me to look into personally.
Aaliyah or Nazira, do you have anything else on this topic?
No, I think we covered things. Yeah. I guess shameless plug too. We have a women in security group within Salesforce. That's how we all participate. We bring different topics every month. We try to alternate between technical, non-technical. We bring external content as well, a lot of internal opportunities as well. So, and then we do mentorship program through EWF. Every 6 months, a few women in Salesforce are able to have a mentor outside Salesforce in the cybersecurity field. We have Aliyah actually started our internal networking, so we get random match, and so you can have a 15-30-minute conversation with anybody in the security organization, and it's a good way of doing a networking. So, yeah. Those are things we try to do internally.
That's great. Well, we're almost at the hour. I wanted to give my heartfelt gratitude to Nazira, Aaliyah, and Sarah for sharing your wisdom and experiences. It's so great to see women coming up in this industry and approaching it in really different ways. I actually just met two of you, so I can't wait to be in more contact and work with you at Salesforce. Thank you to WESIS for inviting Salesforce to participate in this webinar. We're really grateful. Lynn, thank you for your support in making this happen.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me. This has been great.